Hello, I'm Michael Robert Smith, and I'm a doctoral student in composition here at the Butler School of Music.
Well, hello, Michael. Thank you so much for coming in. We're so happy to have you. I feel like what you did here with this opera that's coming out in a few weeks is just incredible. Very few universities would attempt like a brand new world premiere opera, especially one written by a student.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. So just right off the bat, how did it feel is this your first opera?
This is my first opera, yeah.
What did it feel like to write an opera?
I mean, it's pretty it's pretty intense. I mean, it's a humongous undertaking. The piece is about an hour and 20 minutes. And yeah, just the amount of things you have to take into consideration when doing an opera like this is pretty astounding. And sometimes when I'm in the moment of writing a piece, I'm trying not to overthink that because I'll just get completely stuck. It's like I paralyze myself with the amount of things I can think about. So trying to write something like this is it's a little audacious, maybe. It's pretty. I never knew if I was ever going to write an opera. So yeah, now that I'm here, it's pretty cool to see like the score in its physical like reality. It's like, when I got it printed the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, wow, yeah. So it's pretty it's incredible. It's a little frightening. All of the above, So yeah.
Were there ever times you're like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There was a few times, it's really hard to understand just how long something like this might take. And I wrote it in about 9 months. I started in April of last year, and I finished it, the full score and everything, in early January. And there were definitely some moments towards the end there when I was like kind of in that kind of like that feverish, crunch time where I was just not sure I could get it done, in a timely manner where they could actually like get it rehearsed and like ready to go in time. So there was definitely some moments there where I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like it was just overwhelming round the clock work.
Wow.
Yeah. So there were definitely some moments like that, but I think those are just like, I'm sure any artist understands, like there's a lot of times maybe with every single thing that you do where you kind of fall into a moment where you're like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? But
yeah.
It's just, I think it's part of the process sometimes with anything, especially something so huge. But yeah, just a few times though. It wasn't too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the story you're telling here is just absolutely incredible. I think it's a story most people won't know. It's kind of a little bit of a dark part of our history, American history, and with the nuclear age, right? So talk a little bit about what it's about and kind of what inspired you to tackle this.
Sure. So the opera is called Downwind, and Downwind downwinders is a term that we use for the people who were living downwind of nuclear test sites. Okay. And they have their own designation because they have their problems because of this. The people who lived in these areas have significantly higher rates of cancer, birth defects, and particularly rare cancers as well. So after the Trinity test, for example, the cancer rate spiked, and it's still that way. So that's one of the reasons that we wanted to tackle this. So this idea was proposed to me by my librettist, Demian Chavez Galvan, who's from El Paso, has lived in the kind of like, border area between the United States and Mexico. And that's very much kind of within that range, that's not very far away from the Tularosa Basin in New Mexico, which is where this has kind of like been a huge problem, and pretty close to where the nuclear test was took place. So their interest in this came after the movie Oppenheimer. They really loved the movie, as did I, and I thought it was really an interesting movie. But they started thinking about, well, what about everybody else around? Like, because we don't really talk about that, do we? And we don't.
The movie made it seem like there was nobody around.
Yeah, like New Mexico is empty,
Yeah.
So Damien started looking into it, and we, found the story of these people living in that area of New Mexico. So that was the initial inspiration, and then Demian, brought it to me, and it was just the idea. I was just like, oh yeah, that's really interesting. It's like, first of all, it caught my interest because I'm not just thinking about, how it's going to be taken in the world. Like the first reaction has to be me, like, oh yeah, that's something we can talk about. And then I started thinking about, it's like, oh, this is actually pretty relevant considering the kind of the way of the world right now. You know, things are really unstable, and so it just felt like a kind of the right project at the right time, and with the right people. So that was the kind of the inspiration for it. That's where it came from. And yeah.
And did you ever go out to New Mexico and see this area, meet with any of these people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we got a travel grant from the school, from the College of Fine Arts. And we went out to New Mexico for like half a week in March of last year. And so we drove to El Paso first, stopped there, and then made our way up through New Mexico. We went to White Sands National Park, which is very close to where the test happened. Yeah, so we started there, which is a very surreal place. It's beautiful, and it's so strange because the sand is like, it's got like a crust on top, so it doesn't kind of break like sand on the beach. You know, where you kind of like it's always moving with you when you walk through it. It's pretty firm, so you're not always breaking through. But yeah, really, really fascinating place. So we started there, and then one part of this opera we'll get into is these choral interludes, which are kind of unique, I think. And they set texts by their creation myths by one of the local indigenous tribes, the Chiricahua Apache. So we'll get to talk about that a little more. But we stopped in the reservation, and we stopped at their cultural center, and the curator, we spoke with him about like his experience of it, because he was pretty old. He was probably in his 70s, so not quite old enough to be there, but old enough to know people who were there. And so when we started talking to him, he's like, yeah, you know, it was very strange after that happened. Because we told him about the project. He's like, well, I'm a Downwinder. And he told us, like, you know, there was wildlife that just kind of disappeared. You know, certain plants were like, something happened to the plants there, you know, these things that they noticed on the reservation. So that was really cool. It was really interesting to get to know, to hear from somebody like that. Because even more than, you know, the people, this opera in particular is about Mexican Americans who lived in that area. But it was really, you know, finding these mythological texts by this tribe really brought in another group of people who were talked about even less. You know, like the United States, and you know it's you know, whatever the United States government is doing, you know, it seems like obviously the last people they take into consideration is the indigenous people. So like, yeah, even less so than the family that we talk about in this opera. Like, we don't know anything about what happened there. And they have their own healthcare system, and they don't, I don't think they do cancer. I don't think they treat it. So we don't even know what the numbers are for how many people on those reservations got cancer and died from this. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just like a whole like shadow of like, we have no idea how terribly this affected them.
Let's get into this. So very cool. So let's at the very start, this might not start out how you might think of as or people would think of as an opera. So let's just, what will they hear? So there's a slide projector. We hear this no pitch air sounds, right? So maybe talk a little bit about that. Yeah. And just talk about like what are people just going to emotionally experience at the start of this?
So what we're going to experience at the beginning, it's written in more detail in the libretto, is it starts out in darkness. And when I was in New Mexico, I brought a recording device, and I just recorded environmental sounds. And when we were in the town of Carrizozo, where this takes place, I just took a sound of wind going through a brush. So you'll hear that. That's what the that black line right here. Yep. That's so you see wind. So it starts off with that sound. You'll hear that. And then the slide projector, the thing that's really cool about the wind and the sound of a slide projector is an old school slide projector has that kind of like sound going on the whole time.
The little fan. Yeah.
So it kind of so first you're just hearing the wind, and what the string players are doing is they're muting their strings with their hands, so they're not going to be they're not going to be like fingering a pitch or anything. They're just muting the strings, and they're bowing right on top of the bridge, and it makes a kind of sound. So it kind of has an airy, windy quality to it. So basically, I'm just trying to create that environmental kind of sound.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then the slide projector, throughout this prelude, you'll see in the slide projector part clicks. So what's happening there is that images of the Trinity test slowly come in, like just static images, photographs.
Like the mushroom cloud?
Yeah. They click into place, so it starts out small. And then it clicks, gets bigger, clicks, gets bigger, clicks, gets bigger, bigger, until we see the famous mushroom cloud. Mm-hmm. And so every time you see a click, it gets a little bigger. And then we finally get text inside of the sun. So this is one of the mythological texts from the Chiricahua Apache. And the full text is inside of the sun, 2 cottonwood trees stand tall. So say the elders when they speak of it. And cottonwood trees are kind of a sacred symbol. And they kind of stand for like energy and life-giving, like at least in my understanding. So the sun itself has those, like that's powering the sun. Like it's a very powerful image for them.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I think with the kind of like, as they're saying this, and then we have these images of the bomb getting larger and larger, there's this kind of like weird contradiction that we're having. We have this life-giving, their understanding of the sun, this life-giving thing. Obviously, the sun is very, very important to the life on Earth. But then at the same time, the same kind of like scientific reality that creates a star like the sun is also the same scientific reality that creates the destructive, bomb that we've created here on Earth. So it creates this very interesting, contradiction.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump forward and see. Is there any parts that kind of jump out? We don't have time to kind of go through the whole thing, but like...
Yeah, it's long.
Yeah.
I love the beginning of the first scene, actually.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So October 15th?
1990.
1990.
Yeah, so one thing that I did not mention about the opera and its structure is that it plays out in reverse chronological order. So it starts on October 15th, 1990, and it starts with the last surviving member of the family, Enrique. And he's dying. He's in hospice. And he's kind of reflecting on his life. He's a very defeated man. Like he's profoundly like he's not dying happy with his life at this point. Like he's looking back on it as almost like what did he do with his life? What did he do with his life?
He said that I might live a year if I were lucky.
Yeah, and then we go into. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the doctor said he said I might live a year if I was lucky. Yeah. Now it's been a year, I don't feel lucky at all. And then we move into this aria where he starts talking about the finish line of his final fortunate year. He says, as 60 years draw to an inescapable end, what can I say I've done with my life? So we're kind of like getting to the point of how he's feeling here. Yeah. And he's feeling like he didn't accomplish anything. With all my time on this earth, hundreds of months, thousands of weeks, tens of thousands of days, a high school diploma, a bachelor's degree, a trifling teaching pension that I won't live to see. I lived the paltry life my parents lived before me. Like he doesn't see his life as significant in any way. Like he is at the bottom. Like he is at the very bottom here. Yeah. But yeah, so we come to the end of this aria. Mm-hmm. We can just talk through the first scene. And either a memory or a ghost. So his father visits him. So Enrique... he asks his dad at one point, was the disease that doomed my days promised to me from birth, or was there any other way I could have reached my end? And Eduardo says, don't talk. He says, don't talk such nonsense. Don't say such stupid things. Like he's being pretty blunt, but he's like, you're sharp and short temper, that furrow on your brow, the house where you will die. This is your bequest. This is what your life is. And there's nothing bad about that. And obviously starting at the end of his life, he's at the bottom. Yeah. In other parts of the opera, he's playful. He loves picking on his sister. There's a whole part in scene 2 where they are just like insulting each other playfully, and that's like 3 minutes of the opera. Is them just kind of like calling each other ugly and idiot, and in various ways. So it's kind of fun. It's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. So they call each other fea and babosa, mm-hmm. which means stupid and ugly. And then we kind of launch into this very like playful section where they keep calling each other ugly an idiot, and like kind of a patter style, like think Sondheim, if you all know Sondheim, he has those patter songs.
Yeah.
So they're kind of having a conversation. They're having a conversation. They're talking around each other a little bit, and they're just kind of like jabbing at each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed writing this because it's a moment of levity.
Yes.
In an otherwise incredibly heavy opera. And you know, she drops some hints of how she's feeling unintentionally a few times.
Mm-hmm.
She says, "Too much of my time is wasted in hospitals." And then Enrique he goes like, "Wait, what?" Like he's like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And because she hasn't told him anything yet. And then he's like, "Oh, are you okay?" And then she diverts. She's like, "Is anybody at our age okay?" When Enrique asks her like, "What do you mean by sickness?" And she's like, "Sick like Mama and Papa." Like,
yeah,
what happened to them is now happening to me. Like, and then he starts like, he can't handle it. He starts getting upset. She says, "You know, I suppose it's my time." And he says, "What do you mean by your time?" Like, you know, he starts getting a little, I don't want to say mean, but it's a little more like aggressive. You know, "What do you mean your time?" I don't get it. I've lost everybody. You know, his whole family is gone at this point.
Yeah.
And she's the only one left. So he's like, I can't handle this. And then the final scene is actually the morning of the test before it happens. So this is the only moment in the opera with the family where nobody is sick, nobody's dying, things are fine, they're normal. The last scene starts very similar to how the opera began. It has that kind of air sounds again. Mm-hmm. It has the piano playing inside the piano.
Okay.
You know, and then that kind of moves into the last scene, as Eduardo is outside before the sun comes up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it starts with a moment between him and his wife Teresa, who we didn't really talk about, but she's the mother in the third scene. Yeah, so she comes out. They spend a little bit of time together, just kind of talking. She's like, "What are you doing out here so early?" He's like, "I'm just enjoying the morning. I'm enjoying the coffee you just brought me."
Yeah.
You know, they're just kind of talking to each other.
Just normal life.
Yeah. You know, and we get a little bit of Eduardo's character here. He's got kind of this folksy wisdom about him. Mm-hmm. So Teresa says, she says pretty soon after, "I think we're getting old." And he says he starts kind of like contradicting her. He says, "The desert grows old. The mountains that embrace us grow old. The desert that sustains us, the starry sky above us. The land was carved by wind and rain for hundreds of thousands of years. The desert grows old. We're just passing by." Enrique comes out, and now they're basically really young at this point. Enrique and Ophelia, they're basically kids. So we have this kind of, the bickering music comes back. Okay. That I had between Enrique and Ophelia, and it starts happening again when they're interacting.
The same thing, making fun of each other.
Yeah, you know, when Enrique comes out, he calls his dad an old man, and then he responds by saying, "Oh, I'm not that old. You know, I'm not that old." And Teresa says, "Your father says the desert is old, not him." Yeah. And Enrique says, "Both could be true, though." You know, they're going at each other. Uh-huh. So then his dad, he's like, "Don't fall asleep on me. We have a lot to do." He says, "There's plenty of work to be done." Enrique says, "Plenty of sleep to be had." But then again, Eduardo moves back to those things that he's been saying. "There will always be time to work. How much time do you set aside to simply watch the sunrise?" Enrique keeps going, "Oh, there will be so many sunrises and so many mornings." Mm-hmm. And then Eduardo says, "There'll be so many mornings if you're lucky." So he's getting back to that idea of appreciating the moment of time. Enrique doesn't really understand what he means by "if I'm lucky." So Enrique kind of responds like, "If I'm lucky? Like, what are you talking about?" And then Eduardo says, "So while you're still lucky, why don't you look out to the horizon with me? Mm-hmm. Let's just enjoy this." But yeah, so that's what this scene is. It's just watching them live their day. And then obviously the introduction of Eugenio, the baby, which is the real gut punch, I think.
Yeah.
So yes, Ophelia comes out with the baby. And then the kids start bickering again. We go back to that kind of like bickering music. You know, they start calling each other idiots again. And like when Teresa asks Ophelia, is the baby like causing you trouble? And Ophelia says, "Oh, he can never cause me trouble, but my other brother." It disturbs the baby. Yeah. Eduardo says, "I'll shut both of you up if you don't calm down." Okay, like he's like, "Come on." And then we move into the last big set piece, which is a quartet. Okay. So it's a lullaby, and he starts it off. He sings to the baby. So he sings it. Towards the end of this aria, the whole family sings together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's a big moment And it's kind of like the climax of this scene. We have the whole family together for once, and they're all singing together.
Yeah. And the baby's like...
And the baby's there with them. And they're, so we have the only time in this opera where they're all doing one thing together, singing as a unit. Yeah. So they're not doing individual parts. It's all homophonic. So they're singing the same rhythm, together. Mm-hmm. It's harmonized, but they're all singing the same rhythm together. And the way that they're staging this is really nice, too, because when they come together to sing, there's like a couch on their front porch. So the two kids are sitting on the couch holding the baby. The parents are standing with them. And then as this quartet comes to the end, Eduardo kind of like walks away, kind of like observes everything around him, and then turns to his family and sings this, and then comes back to them. And then the gut punch is the next page, where the lullaby's not quite ended. It feels like it's ending, but before it can have a proper resolution, bomb goes off.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And then that's what ends the scene. And then we have this little postlude, which is very similar music. It's almost exactly the same music as the prelude. We just have the family on stage with the light.
Oh wow.
And then it'll go black.
Wow.
And you'll hear the wind playing, and it fades out. The strings are playing in the absolute highest point or getting really high into the highest point of their registers as it floats out into nothing. And then all the music stops, and then you just hear the wind.
Wow.
And then that's the end.